And we are live. Welcome to another episode of this YouTube series where we, as Luna.ai, interview over 100 sales professionals to help us shape the future of sales, to build the ultimate AI sales tool, which is what we're trying to do with Luna. I'm Steven, one of the founders and CEO of Luna.ai. Today, I'm meeting with Ali. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. But before I give him the floor, for all the new people out here, I just want to give you a quick introduction on what we are doing with Luna.ai. We're building an AI sales tool really focused on top of funnel work right now, which means that our AI finds all the leads for you, scrapes all of the information basically that we can find on the internet, and use that to write mind-blowing sales emails. We're continuously learning from everything that's happening across the platform, meaning that the AI gets smarter and smarter and therefore writes better outreaches every single time. And in order to make that more awesome and to basically make it the perfect tool for AEs that are working at early stage companies that have like a high pressure to perform, a lot of growth potential, is why we are interviewing all of these people. So today I'm meeting with Ali. Thanks so much for being here. You please introduce yourself to the people listening.
No worries at all. Nice to meet you, Stephen. My name's Ali. I've worked in tech sales as a full cycle account exec for the past kind of 5-6 years, from small companies, one-person sales teams, all the way to kind of 40-50 person sales teams. Now currently working at Trumpet as their first sales hire, which is digital sales rooms. For anyone who doesn't know, that is a way to collaborate with buyers to help you close deals faster. Just celebrated my first year anniversary with them last week, and
Congrats.
Keen to get into
nice
all things prospecting and AI with you. Thank you.
Awesome. That's very cool. Like, of course, we've been looking into Trumpet for again preparing for this interview, and it looks like a really cool software platform. I think you've been around for like 2 to 3 years, if I recall correctly, like as a company. Can you first share a bit more about like how it works? Digital sales room sounds very awesome, but like for all of the salespeople listening, how would it work?
Sure. So let's imagine that you're looking to buy some software, whether that's HR platforms or sales tools or enablement tools, reporting tools. If you're going to go out and buy software, you're going to have to go out and evaluate a number of different vendors. You're going to have a number of different demos. They're going to send you a number of different slide decks, proposals, emails. And as you go through that buying process, you've then got to bring in your colleagues, go through legal, security, procurement. So buying software is really, really, really hard and not a very enjoyable experience. So what we're trying to do at Trumpet is bridge the gap between sales teams and buyers to create a collaborative and seamless buying experience. So salespeople create and share one link to a digital sales room, which will then hold things like a business case, mutual action plans, case studies, contracts, security documents, everything that your buyers need to get sign off when you're not in the room. So it makes your buyer's life easier. Sellers then get analytics to see who's involved in the deal so they can multi-thread, uncover hidden decision makers. And the ultimate goal is basically closing more deals faster. So fairly compelling at the moment with
nice.
The state of sales. So it's going good.
That's awesome. Is your ICP, like your primary persona, is that the salesperson or the buyer, like the buying persona in this case?
We sell to sales teams. So it's typically B2B SaaS software teams, account executives, or ICPs we sell to kind of CROs, heads of sales, VPs of sales. The end user is always the account executive, really, though.
Gotcha. Awesome. Maybe one question to kick off with. You've been around for just over a year, which is awesome. Like as the first sales hire there, what did the platform look like when you first started there in comparison to what it is today?
Completely different. So I used the tool before I joined the team.
Nice.
I was looking for a solution like this in my previous role, demoed all the products that were out there, and Trumpet was by far the best one. And as I had a demo with the co-founder, Nick, after that demo, he messaged me and said, "We're actually looking for our first sales hire. What do you think?" And I was like, "Yeah, say no more. I mean, this tool is brilliant.
Awesome.
It solves so much." I was immediately sold from the first time I used the product. But even from then, our our engineering team is the biggest part of the company. We're about approaching 30 in team size, and the engineering team I think makes up kind of 2/3 of that, and they are shipping hundreds of features. It seems every month. It seems like, honestly, it's incredible. We've got a releases channel on Slack, which is the most active by far. It's release after release after release after release, which makes my life a lot easier.
That's
And it's also
awesome.
great for us as well. We were in a kind of a beta mode before I joined for about a year and built up a wait list of kind of 3,000-4,000 users. And although not every single person converted to a user straight away when we kind of turned on the platform, a lot of our opportunities come from our marketing releases where it says, we just released this new feature, we just released this new feature, we just released this new feature, which is every couple of days is this massive list of all the new things that we can now do in Trumpet. So I can look back on some of the digital sales rooms I made this time last year, and they're completely different. So much more functionality and flexibility, integrations and stuff you can do. So it's an exciting time.
Nice. That's awesome. How would you say that, what was your role like when you first joined? Did you already have a product that was ready to be sold, or was there still work to do in finding product market fit and stuff like that for the early traction?
That's a good question. I think we were most of the way there for our product market fit, because there was always the need to have. I'm the kind of prime example. I found the tool and I thought it did everything I needed it to do before I even joined the company. But it's good. It's the exciting thing that I think about Trumpet is there's no limit to what we can do with it. So it's never going to be finished. And that's something that when we onboard people, it's something that we say to them as well. It's like, what we create with you today is going to be completely different to what we create with you in a year from now, because we're developing quickly. You're going to give us feedback. We're growing. We get more feedback. And it's this kind of never ending upward spiral where it just gets better and better and better every week.
Yeah. That also must mean that your role has significantly changed over the year, right? From first, if you're approaching product market fit, maybe not too much, but I can imagine if the product is not 100% there yet, that you're not only doing full on sales calls and trying to close deals, but also doing a lot of feedback, basically being a product expert, product marketing, or a product manager in the meantime. Was that also the case for you?
It not as much the case for me. It's about a month after me, we hired our product lead. Gotcha. So while I still get obviously loads of feedback all the time, we actually just before this call had our sync with the product lead where we have our kind of weekly feedback session, and all the calls I feedback. This is what customers are saying. This is what they love. This is where I think there's kind of new feature opportunities and where we can gain market share, so on and so on and so on. So I don't think that ever will leave my role. And it's something that I actually quite enjoy is that kind of building process of actually having an idea and actually seeing it come part of the platform as well. So I'm not sure that's something that will ever really leave my role. But you're right in that early stage companies, you have to kind of wear a lot of hats, as it were, which is quite a cliche thing to say. But it's true. There's a lot of crossover with CS, onboarding, implementation, running workshops, renewals, demos, prospecting. There's a lot to get stuck into, and that's why personally I opt to work in startups, because there's more that you can kind of get involved with.
There's a lot of dynamics for sure.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I can imagine that as well. It's one of the things that we hear from time to time is that with early stage companies, especially with founding AEs, while the role is broader than just doing sales, also with all of the hats that you mentioned, that the pressure from the founding team or sales lead or investors or anyone that is putting out any pressure on the company to perform, and therefore also on the founding AE, is mostly focused on sales. Did you experience that as well, or was there how maybe rephrase the question? How was the pressure on you when you in the first few months that you started?
That's a good question. I mean, I think if you're in sales, there's always going to be a certain amount of pressure. I think we're in a fairly fortunate position in that we're we're growing every single month. Which, when you think, I mean, I don't have kind of direct conversations with our investors, but from what I hear in our kind of retros and talks with the CEO is that our investors and our board are very happy with kind of how things are going. So we just need to keep at it. It's it's becoming a competitive space, which is, I see it as a good thing because it proves that it's a good idea.
100%.
It helps us educate the rest of the market because digital sales rooms are a fairly new concept for a lot of people. So yeah, and that's where, I mean, if we have competitors popping up, but we're the fastest to develop, then we're in an awesome position to kind of take advantage of that. So yeah,
100%.
There's pressure. There's always pressure.
Gotcha. It's healthy pressure.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Like especially also what you said about the competition. Like there was a founder once, I can't remember who it was, who posted that on LinkedIn, who said copycats are the best compliments that you can get as a founder, because if people think your idea is good enough to actually put in the effort and put in the funding and stuff like that to start copying your idea, you're indeed on the right track. And he was also congratulating all of the copycats that popped up, saying like, hey, thanks for being here, thanks for spreading the word, where he said like, we're the best in the market anyway, so the more people know about like this type of technology exists, eventually they'll come to us anyway. So if you keep on like producing, like if you keep on pushing out features and keep on listening to your customers and basically building the best product out there, then the copycats are only going to help you go faster.
Exactly, that's exactly what I think as well.
Exactly. That's also a healthy state of mind. That's also do you, in your sales conversation, do you get a lot of questions about it? Like, hey, what makes you different than like competitor A, B, C, or D?
Yeah, quite often.
Yeah.
And it really depends. Like there's so many, with the tool that I sell, there's lots of companies kind of popping up every couple of weeks. There's some people who've been in the market for a very long time, but are slightly positioned slightly differently. It's a conversation to navigate when it comes, because depending on, I mean, because all the competitors are thinking about it in slightly different ways. We all differ in slightly different ways. It's really depending on what the customer wants to achieve. But in my opinion, the best kind of indicator of if a deal is qualified is if they mention competitors. Like if they're as a buying team thinking about what all the different solutions out there, awesome. Because I know where we win and I know how we can win. So if you're talking to me about competitors, great. This is a qualified deal. Now we can actually get into how do we progress this and how do we help you make the best decision for your company, rather than me trying to go through all these different medic qualification criteria. You've just told me that you're more likely to buy something than anyone else.
Exactly. Because you're actively looking, because you know that as soon as other companies have not looked out competitors yet, they're going to do it anyway. So they're just early in the process, which is interesting. It's kind of like a reverse psychology in that sense, that a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to talk about competitors because then we have the same conversation over and over again. But you just see it as like the next stage in the sales cycle.
Yeah, I love it. It's going to come around some point or another. Like realistically, if you're speaking to a sales manager or whatever it is, if you're speaking to like a mid-level prospect, and they say they don't mention any competitors, you can almost guarantee that if they go and try and get budget sign off from the CFO, they're going to say, what else have you looked at? What else is out there? And
100%.
You'd rather have that conversation at the start of the sales cycle rather than when you've committed the deal and you said, right, this is going to close by the end of February, and they haven't looked at any other competitors. It gets in front of the CFO for sign off and they go, no, go and look at other competitors. That just then adds 3-4 weeks onto your sales cycle and gives you all sorts of trouble. So yeah, the competitors in and out as soon as you can, the sooner the better.
Nice. That's awesome. So actually the best way to approach that is to prepare for your discovery call. Just send a list of all the competitors you can think of, check these out as well, and then we'll have the conversation.
That's what works for you.
Yeah. Oh, that's a brilliant one. We should build that into Luna as well, like automatic competitor comparison. Like, oh, you want to book a meeting? First do this test if you understand the competition well enough for us to actually spend time on it. That would be awesome. Nice. Cool. Maybe one question, which is of course very interesting for us. You mentioned you're like responsible for full cycle sales, not only for this job but also for previous job that you had. Um, if you take a look at your work at Trumpet now, you mentioned that you had like the wait list and a lot of incoming leads for like marketing updates and stuff. Do you do a lot of outbound work at this moment?
Every day, every single day.
Nice, nice. The grind of sales.
Grinding sales, yeah.
Nice. What does it look like for you? Like, did you set up or maybe like let's start with at the beginning. That's maybe an interesting one for like many of the people listening, as they are also like founding AEs, just got started and stuff like that. How did you approach it from the beginning? Was the top of funnel, like the cold outreach process already there, or did you set it up yourself?
I mean, there was some of it was already there. I like to figure out things for myself, so I did a lot of it. I think a lot of cold outreach is kind of figuring out what works, tweaking it, and then putting it in a tone of voice that works for you. Because I write in a way that I speak, kind of thing. So I quite like to have my tone of voice and just the way that I write, the words that I use, that kind of stuff. I'm quite particular about the way that I write. But one of the great things about working in a startup is there is that opportunity to go in and just test and just run with things and try things out yourself, right? So it's been a lot of kind of trial and error, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, refining the messaging, a lot of speaking to customers, reading reviews. What do they say about the tool? How do we fix those problems? And going from there. And that's across all channels, across referrals, across inbounds, across email, across LinkedIn. Yeah, any channel you name, we do it.
Nice. That's awesome. Do you do cold calling as well?
Yep.
Yeah. Nice. What is your current, like, what is your experience? Have you done cold calling in your previous jobs as well?
Yeah, and it was a lot harder. I was selling into, so now I sell into salespeople. So more often than not, they get it because they're asking their sales team to do the exact same. Or at one point or another, they were an account executive or an AE or an SDR, and they've had to do the same thing. So selling to salespeople, you'll often, in my experience, you'll get more time, or people will be more open to having a conversation with you. Previously, I sold into hospitality, I sold into HR, I sold into finance, and yeah, you could cold call someone there, and it's just instant hang up.
Oh wow!
So yeah, I find that people are open to having conversations in sales.
I can imagine. That's probably because they know how difficult it is and how how awful it is to keep on like getting that rejection and stuff like that. Yeah, I can imagine. Like I also heard some people tell, but I'm curious to hear about your experiences that cold calling has become increasingly difficult because people are just not picking up the phone as often as they used to do, let's say a couple of years back. Do you experience that as well, or is that different for you?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably slightly different. Like I've not sold to the same persona consistently.
Gotcha.
So yeah, the people I was calling years ago who would never answer the phone, and like people in hospitality, HR, finance, it felt like they never answered the phone. So I feel like in compared to those personas, sales pick up more. But yeah, hard to say whether it's changed over the past couple of years. Yeah, I think as long as you're there, you can only control what you can control, right? If people pick up the phone, great, you can have a conversation. If people don't pick up the phone, there's nothing you can do. You can't have a conversation. You can send them an email, you can chat them on LinkedIn, you can do it that way. But if they don't pick up the phone, they don't pick up the phone. That's not in your control.
Yeah, that's a fair one. That's a fair one. Interesting. And if you take a look at the rest of the sequence, you're using multi-channel, right, for your outbounds, or like LinkedIn, email, and calling at the same time. How did you approach setting up that funnel, or like multiple, like that sequence, or multiple sequences, or like how did you get there?
Yeah, it's a lot. Again, it's a lot of trial and error. It's understanding the messaging, different personas, different triggers. This is where I think people in outreach almost, because there's so much talk on LinkedIn and stuff about, oh, you need to personalize your emails and they need to be this length and they need to be in an F shape and they need to look like this and that and so on and so on. And I think that where people almost go wrong is they think, okay, well, I need to write a personalized email where every single little thing is personalized to this individual. As an example, I got an email once saying, I saw you went to university, you studied in France for a year, and then they went into a sales pitch from there. And I was like, what does me studying in France 6 years ago have anything to do with? There's no relevance there, right? Whereas the personalization is actually, I read a white paper that you produced, or I read something in a news article, or I read something in a case study or a review or a job spec. That's the thing that you can then link to a problem that they might have. And that's what personalization is. It's not, oh, I know that you like rugby, or I know that you went to university. That you can't link that into an HR platform or a payroll platform or a payment infrastructure. Like, that kind of personalization is not what is meant by personalization. It's an observation about your business based on research that I've done. I think you have this problem. Does it make sense to have a conversation? And that's how I approach every bit of outreach. Is, I've noticed this about your company. I think this means that you have this problem. I can help with a digital sales room. Let's have a chat. And whether I'm sending voice notes on LinkedIn, whether I'm just messaging people on LinkedIn or sending emails or cold calling people, that's what I say every single time. Is there's when you hear cold call, like, I think cold calling gets a bad rep, has a bad reputation because it's often done in the way that spray and pray emails are done.
Yeah,
and
the smile and dial.
Exactly, smile and dial. I have a script that I'm just going to read through and try and get a meeting off it. Whereas, like, no, if you actually focus on having a conversation with somebody about a problem you think they have based on some kind of trigger, then first of all, you're way more likely to get a meeting. And second of all, you will stand out in that cold call, because that's not what everybody does.
Exactly. Oh man, 100%. I'm really glad to hear you say that. This is what we see all around us, and this is also the reason why we started working on Luna, because there was so much spray and pray going on. But also in that regard, I just moved to San Francisco, and someone emailed me, said, "Hey, I saw that you recently moved to San Francisco. Go Warriors," which is the basketball team here. And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then they went into, I think it was, I don't even remember what it was, because I stopped reading two sentences after, because it was something related to probably hiring or something like that. Are you looking for a developer or something like that? Where I'm like, okay, it's cool to see you're using AI in a correct way, because, well, you're basically making something unique. But still, the more and more we dive into this, the more we see that also a lot of sales professionals do not necessarily know what works. If someone says on LinkedIn, okay, personalization is important and you can use AI for that, then all of the SaaS tools are going to brag about how personalized an email is, where technically it's true, but it doesn't help you get more meetings. So that's, 100%. We're all for relevance, all for quality over quantity. We want to make sure that every single outreach and every single touch point counts. And that's, so I'm really glad to hear you say that. What kind of software do you use, if I may ask, for your current? Are you doing stuff? It sounds like you're doing a lot of stuff manually instead of like automated. If you're sending voice notes, writing messages, doing calls.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of manual steps in there, and especially on. I mean, LinkedIn is a big channel for us. Me and the team the team and I are always very kind of active on there. Partly because we just want to be seen by everybody, but also because it's a new tool, educating the market, so on and so on. So we actually have quite a lot of success on LinkedIn, and that kind of building of a personal brand, I think, is quite important, because then when you end up messaging somebody or prospecting somebody, the likelihood is they've seen something that you've posted before, or they'll be familiar with you in some way. Like I did a post the other day, it was crazy. It got like nearly 200,000 impressions. And
damn,
if I was I can message somebody off the back of that. Doesn't necessarily need to be related to that post, but they might have seen it and they might be familiar with me. and you're always more likely to respond to things that you are familiar with. Whereas if I just land in your inbox, you've never heard of me before, are you going to reply? Less likely. If I send you a voice note proving that I'm human and it's 30 seconds about this observation I made about your business, and you've seen my profile picture around the feed, and maybe you've liked one of my posts 6 months ago or whatever, that makes somebody way more likely to reply. Like, I think of LinkedIn posts as almost just touch points in a sequence. Just the sequence is like endless. It's just an endlessly long sequence. And at some point, I'll reach out to somebody, and as long as it's personalized, then I've got a pretty good chance of getting a response because they're familiar with who I am. But yeah, back to your question, it is quite manual. We also use so I went off a complete tangent there. Also use
but it was a good one. It was a solid one.
Yeah, Apollo we use for sequencing, for data, for I'm trying out their calling, their dialing software as well. So yeah, fairly
very
lean.
nice. Awesome. That's very cool to hear. Maybe one last question that we like to ask all of the people that are our guests on this show. If you, in like a perfect world with all of the resources and no constraints and stuff like that, you could say, well, like the ultimate AI sales tool, what would be the one feature where you say that's something that I really, really need, and something that does not necessarily exist yet, but something where you say, well, if someone managed to build that, that would be off the hook. That would be awesome.
That's a good question. There's a couple that pop into my head, but I'm not. So I'm very pro AI, as like a co-pilot. Like, I want it to do all of the admin things that I don't want to do, like updating my CRM, that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's stuff like coaching things that you could do. I had an idea the other day, and I'm not actually sure if it would be valuable in the end. But if let's say we're doing a discovery call, and I ask you a question, you give me an answer, then it could prompt me to ask the next question. So, like, based on what you've told me, this is what I should ask next.
That's really cool. So basically, like a real-time co-pilot, where it's it's going to help you. Like, hey, maybe we need, like, it would be awesome to learn more about this, or this is something that, like, here is some kind of buying intent, or like to basically a second set of eyes to help streamline the conversation.
Exactly, and I think it's an interesting one, because I think that's where if you're an experienced seller, then maybe it has less. Maybe then it becomes something where it's like after the call, you get a summary of it and it says you should have asked this, you should have asked this, you should have asked this. Whereas if you're a more junior, I don't know, SDR running your first discovery call, like, that can be quite a terrifying experience. Whereas if you had like some kind of AI co-pilot that was, because all that you end up doing is giving somebody a list of questions and getting them to like interrogate a prospect rather than having a conversation.
Exactly.
So yeah. And then you're kind of helping like an SDR, for example, facilitate a discovery session rather than just getting them to interrogate a prospect.
And it would also probably have a positive impact on the experience in the discovery call of the prospect itself, because I also sometimes have discovery calls where you basically have someone and their laptop is like this, and they're just, okay, and what is this, and what is this, and then like you have 15 minutes of just like you said, a plain interrogation, or like, okay, and then the call ends, like, you'll get a message from my AE, and then they close off. You're like, okay. So probably if you have like a conversation where you can ask questions about the product as well, and like also do a bit of self-qualification in there, and I think that has like a positive experience on both sides of the conversation.
100%. That'll be something that Gong will pick up on that, and they'll build that into their platform in the next year. I should copyright that one.
Very nice. Get some Gong shares while you're at it. Nice, awesome. Thanks so much for this great conversation. To close it off with, is there anything that you would like to share with the people that are listening about Trumpet or about anything else?
Yeah, for sure. I'll do a little shameless plug of Trumpet. If anyone is
fully allowed,
getting ghosted, yeah, if anyone's getting ghosted by your buyers, or if you're having trouble multi-threading, or if you're always in competitive buying processes and you keep losing, then come and check out Digital Sales Rooms and Trumpet, and you can sell when you're not in the room, close more deals faster, multi-thread, and make loads of money.
Well, that's a very solid pitch. Awesome, man. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time, for joining, for sharing your insights and basically your experiences on how you approached it being a founding AE at Trumpet. There was a lot of value in this conversation, so really appreciate that. For the people that have been watching, thanks so much, and hopefully see you again at the next episode. Cheers.
Cheers.